All right, good afternoon. Today we're going, I should switch this. We are continuing our progress on the Pokemon Red reinforcement learning project. What we had seen happen last time was, or I guess the changes from last time had been proceeding fine, but then I realized that the agents weren't actually, let me see if I can get to here. They weren't actually being able to get past the part where they need to teach Bill how to use the cell separator. So that way it removes the agent that's in front of the house. So I want to see if I have screenshots of that still, because the last two runs have basically timed out in terms of they were running for greater than 48 hours. And then weights and biases were not accepting the session information anymore. And so that's what ended up basically causing them to crash out here. And you can kind of see time and again, it happens, I would say, fairly early into the run. Afterwards, it runs for a few times. You can see here, like this one went for basically 2 cycles and then eventually got stuck partway through. And it just had not been, we had not been getting solid progress here. So one of the things that I did notice was even if I gave it the same information from last time, you can see this one's starting to get to cerulean. It couldn't actually get past the agent here. Now these ones are over by Cerulean Gym. These ones are in the gym, but the person that's by the house will not move. I think it's the policeman that's in front of it until they actually get into Bill. Here's one that's by Bill's location, but they don't complete the sequence there. And so that was the cause for the problems there. And so what I was trying to do was I was trying to use the information that we have here in terms of the events JSON to figure out the key events. And I found them here. So you can see that you use the cell separator, then you get the SS ticket, you meet Bill. He has to say, use the cell separator, like that's your first time talking to him. Then you get rewards for actually going to the machine going to the computer and doing that. And then he'll give you the SS ticket, and then you get points for leaving the house. So these are all, I would say, quite a bit of, then there's the other one here for meeting Bill. Quite a bit of rewards for actually completing the sequence. But what ends up happening is it never fully figures out that sequence along the way. And it was trying to basically just focus on minimizing the time that was getting deducted for the recent rewards. So there's a couple ideas here for that. One is if we go here and we extend the time for that immediate reward, the immediate revisit functionality here. So just get immediate revisit penalty. So this one's here is if it's been there in the last 500 steps, it's going to get that revisit penalty, a slight one. But the immediate revisit penalty, we can actually see here, it's that last 100 steps, which then causes it to kind of go in this large loop, walking around the area and not actually receiving a penalty at all during that time. And then the agent will then kind of just keep moving, but it won't actually complete the sequence that's there. And because this is not the in-battle time frame, right there, you're trying to talk to an individual. So you end up running into this issue where it wants to reduce that penalty for standing still, but it also wants to then get the rewards it doesn't know how to get yet. So it ends up going, well, I talked to him, I got some reward. I'm definitely going to Bill's room, or what is it, cottage there. But then he doesn't, the agents don't figure out what to do to get that remainder of the reward there. And there's no indication that there's going to be any further reward, right? Because it's not actually reading the menus there. So an idea here is to actually turn off the penalty during this time. So if it's here, right, or if you're in certain locations, then you can reduce the penalty in the meantime. Now, I'm afraid that if I do introduce this, you will end up with a case where the agent's just like, I'd rather go here and not receive that penalty and stay there than actually going through and completing it. Or if it's going into that space and then it suddenly goes out and starts receiving that penalty again, it may just decide, oh, it's better for me to go back inside. So it's a couple things to keep in mind. And if we go, where is it? Is it the global map here? No, that's not the global map. Was the one I was looking for. Map data. Yeah, so these are a list of all of the map locations here in the game. And so I was trying to see if Bill's lab is here. So we want to do this where if they are in Bill's lab, we're going to turn this off. So come back here. And we do have this thing. So if map n and so that's only for Bill's lab here because we do want it to figure things out. We may also have to put it in a couple other places, although it's really unlikely. Another thing here is that we may want to provide it a small reward for each location that has actually visited in this list. And we would have to track which ones are there along the way, but you can see like the SSN ones become important. You got the Hall of Fame and all that here. There's, 200 and something locations across the whole game? Yeah, 247 looks like. And some of them skip along the way, but there's a lot in general for it to end up meeting. So if for whatever reason that map is 88, we're just going to turn off the revisit penalty for now. The immediate revisit penalty. And then similar thing here is we're going to give it some time to explore around the location, but we should do if. No, we don't have it, so I have to get the string. What's right here? So go below this. If map n and the idea here is we're just trying to allow it the time to work through the sequence of events, so that way it can get through this location without receiving really any penalty along the way. So we have the events. We have another way to encourage this would be to further tune up these events in particular. If we wanted to do that, so like we may want to call them like key events or bonus events to highlight as important across the game. So, it gains points for beating trainers. That's fine. We have a way to give it extra incentive in terms of the badges because we have a separate badge reward. But if you look here, what is it? It's cut. What is it? HM. So you can see each of the HMs here are important. And so they will get the points just by doing it, but then you need ways to track that they actually use them, which was another thing that we have here that's just not actually functioning yet. But I want to try this and see if we can get it to work. Another thing that I wanted to try here was I list it here. So I have a list of all the Pokemon, right? And so I think, do I actually use this? Yeah. So I use this to get the lead, which then comes into, I think it's the stream wrapper. Where are we at? I was pretty sure stream wrapper was here. Am I just missing it? That's not what I'm looking for. Oh, stream agent wrapper. That's what I was missing. And then I think it's extra. Yeah. So it goes into the environment. It then goes to get lead Pokemon info. And you can see here, this is what it's looking for. So it will read the name of the Pokemon from the list. So we're reading the actual memory value here instead of just getting the number back, and then the level of that Pokemon. So getting an idea of who is actually using and what their current level is. Now, we could add way more information, but it's not going to be particularly useful in terms of what we see on the map here. But I thought it was interesting because I had opened up this question to Gemini to take the two files basically, and I wanted to say I wanted better mappings of this, and it consistently tried to just only give me the moves of Pokemon that were actively in the party, which ends up being a problem because I want a list of all the moves. Because if we go here, last time we put together that table of what are the Pokemon and what are their moves. And you can see here, what ends up happening is we get a lot of information, but it's only basically the byte number for, or the number representation of the byte for what that move is. So for example, like this is Bulbasaur, move 1 is Tackle, move 2 is Growl, 73 then here is Leech Seed, and it doesn't really have a way, or we haven't not set up the output here to incorporate that. And that's what I was looking for in terms of the information here. So instead of this being the stream wrapper, this comes back to the callback here. And then you can see we go get the party info here. So if I'm pretty sure I put it in this. Yeah. And so all we need to do here is actually just put the read m function around each of them. That's going to be a lot of copy and paste these through, but then this should, because that gives us the actual value in the memory, like I said, not the representation here. But it ends up being that I don't need to store the full list of moves. The only time that that would be useful would be for if we wanted to incentivize it for learning specific moves. Do you remember the last time we put in a function to see if they learned cut? And then we just checked to see one of the values just to make sure it was working. If they had tackle as the move, and they should all have tackle because they all start with Bulbasaur as the lead Pokemon. This would change slightly. Not this particular. We're talking the move check. If it had started with a different Pokemon, because I think, who is it? Charmander starts with Scratch, and so that would be slightly different here. So we don't have to change anything in the callback. It's just going to get this information from here. So The other thing we found here is if you go back to the weights and biases, so the Pokemon ID and the name are exactly the same value. So even though it stores it twice here in memory, that should not be the case. I'm wondering, though, if this ends up being the nickname that you give to the Pokemon. So it stores the original Pokemon name and then the nickname that you give it. So I think, for example, ours calls Bulbasaur Plants, right? And that name's going to stay consistent, but what is the actual Pokemon that's underneath of that? That's going to be what the difference here is. So I need to see if these two if one of these will actually come back with the name or whether it's the actual value here. But either way, we could just, you can see here, I'm going to go to party info. It's already reading M. So it's not getting that back. Okay, I'm wrong here. Right? We see the level. That's always going to be that. The move, though, is not that value. So I guess that's a good check. Read M. It's supposed to get the memory value, but we need a map. So I need to read bit. Okay. Let's see if that will clean that up. So instead of the M here, the level is actually the level just directly in memory, so we don't need to worry about that. Oops. So we should fix those two up like that. Now, should give us the basics for the updated information. At least I hope it will. Let's run this and test. I'm going to come here. What was the most recent run that actually finished a run? This one here. Looks like this went around a couple of days. Actually, we can just leave this the same. It doesn't need it. Let's go here, command prompt. And then always trying to remember the process for this. So you go Poké Red. No. Hit the wrong key. This is then activating the virtual environment that this runs off of. And then we go change it into the baselines directory. And then we just use Python. And you want to call, in this case, ours is baseline fast v2. If you look at the repo, there are multiple versions in here. They're all slightly different from one another in the way that they treat things. I've been working on the V2 version this whole way through, so that is why I do that. But a lot of times you can see the other ones here in the directory. There's the baseline fast. It will go through, I think this does, what is it? Yeah, it does 10,000 total time steps based on the number of agents that you have. So it's a little bit different into how it goes through here. So it's not quite as long, and it runs a minimal amount in terms of the reward output here, and it doesn't have the things that we've included, like our version. All right, so read. Okay, so it's missing an argument for when we did a read bit. Okay. I bet I'm probably one of the only times that it's being used. Yeah. All right. We got to go back and take that out. What was this? Get Pokemon name? Yeah. So I can just use that. Those will at least work. Now, as far as the moves go, and I can make a list and can kind of show what's here. So this is where I said I was opening up to Gemini in terms of the things here. So this is actually fairly representative. The map locations here, it only gave me 100. There are, like we showed the other file here, quite many more actual locations here, and it assumes they are in a linear order in terms of them along the way, but that is not the case. And so if you come here, I asked Claude basically the same things, but I did not give it any other, like I didn't give it the actual files here. I just let it tell me what the moves were. And then you can see here, it gave me this back right on the first shot, which I was kind of surprised that it was able to do so. And then you can see here, it kind of does a similar thing as the other one. It stops partway through the coordinates. I think part of this is just because a lot of times in terms of the games, they don't complete the full mapping going through here. It's really been one of the key roadblocks for some of the generative AI is that they don't know really what to do in the later parts of the game. So if you see here, like this is the why did it do it that way? Let's see. Got it. So it's trying to get the individual address back. But if I wanted it to be the same as the Pokemon list that I had given it, that part is a little bit different. So we change this to return. Let's just call that move names map. And then let's just say ID. Now, this should become move names map. And now, instead of giving it the read m of it, you have what the actual value is here. And I'm going to go back to Claude here. I'm going to say, can you give me a list of the moves mapped to the numerical value instead of the address? So it's going to take a moment here. The only thing I didn't like is that it overwrote the original file here. Oh no, I made another file. Great. As that had been an issue before. So now if I take this, come back up. The self dot, sorry. It's just in self in parentheses, yeah. Call this self and move ID. And then go here and now move ID. So we save that. And then go back up here. We're going to save this as get move names map. And now we're going to go find those read bits again. Let's do this for each one. Save it all the way through. Does it not recognize it, or did I? Set that up incorrectly. I don't think I tabbed it in far enough. Yeah, okay. That's the issue. That should be fine. Now if I go back up to these, and now they're appearing correctly. Perfect. So we're going to give this a shot of running it again and just see how well it handles it, right? So the read bit wasn't working. It didn't even get to the point where it started executing. Uh-oh. Overlapped result. Get levels reward. Why is level reward thrown out? Oh, that's the wrong file here. Because it calls up the Pokemon level. There's no 0. Because, yeah. That makes sense. Okay. I thought it was something to do with the incorrect implementation, but yeah, if there's no Pokemon in the party, there's no value there, so it returns a 0. And we didn't have that in the map, so then that caused error. Oh no. Does it not know how to display? Because I put it as NA. Right, we want to save this, save this. Still encountering that issue? Oh, for the Pokemon now, of course. Right, so 0. None. This is better than last time. Hey. All right, let's make sure we get this wide enough. Otherwise, it'll immediately start going through and giving us issues. The other thing I'll have to do is I'll have to go through and get rid of some of these sessions. We've been going about 2 months now. And it's not like it's too large that's impossible to manage, but it does start to add up over and over again. There we go. And we're off. And you can see we have to start being careful. These outputs are actually slowing us down. We should be about almost 1500 frames per second, but we're having that over and over again. So let's go. Right here. Seems like they are proceeding through, which is nice. What happened here? Oh, these were some of the runs that training runs. I'll have to update them to match when they ran. Got an increase here. Let's see the table. So I'll just flip those in terms of what they are. These are all off. Horn drill is definitely not the move here. Pidgey definitely does not have to cut. So in terms of the moves, should be gusts. So everything's off by 1. I bet it is all the way through. It shouldn't be surprising. Yeah, move. We're going to do this over and over. So save this. I'm not too worried in terms of the output for now. We'll restart it later. I want to see their progression. It looks like somebody's running. I was hoping we get there quickly. I know they struggle. They like brute force their way through Brock because the rewards are so high for battling him. So they bounce off him a couple times. You can see that. Why does it say Pokemon number 255? They all have that. One cut Nidoran. That's great. They definitely don't have one drill. But this means that we can incentivize moves that we want them to have. So, oops, for example, if we wanted, so let's read this one. So, for example, if we wanted Bulbasaur for it to have tackle up until it learns cut, we can then set a value for tackle, let's say maybe 5, and then cut to be something like 20. Growl would give no value to, so once it replaces it with a move you would want it to keep, you would do that, and then you kind of scale up the reward for each Pokemon, especially if you wanted to incentivize certain behaviors for the Pokemon to, or for the agents to learn in terms of the Pokemon. So, for example, I see a Weedle here. If we had a run where there was no, there was a Squirtle as a starter, which means they have no way of learning cut, you would want to incentivize it to capture a Weedle and train that up to be Beedrill, so that way it can learn cut along the way as one of its valid moves. So this then incentivizes the behavior of, oh, you need certain Pokemon in your party, right? Because you need those different attributes, those different HMs available to help the party proceed through the game. You can see early on, like a lot of Pidgeys, a lot of Rattatas, those are the first things that you encounter. So, of course, it tends to capture those. Frankly, I'm surprised it got Nidoran because that involves going off to the side. But there's a fair amount of them. Oh no, that's the same one again. Okay, Caterpie, another Nidoran. Like, you can see that there are variety here. The one thing you may want to do, let's say, is, you wouldn't want it to capture a Kakuna, because then it ends up with a Pokemon that doesn't particularly do much to the party in terms of the abilities that it has, because it just has Harden, which ends up being useless for it to level up along the way. And the only time that it incidentally levels up a Pokemon is if it runs out Bulbasaur or Ivysaur. It does Leech Seed, and then Kakuna just does Harden over and over again until the Pokemon ends up fainting, and then it gains a level or two that way. Especially for like the level 4 version of it, it's really easy for that one to level up in like a trainer battle scenario. But those are more things that we have to kind of keep on the watch here for. Like I said, you can see they kind of bounce off Brock here at the early phase. And you can see, for the most part, they keep moving, which is fine. It seems like we've got one that made it through with a level 10 Bulbasaur, which is frankly kind of surprising that it was able to do so. Because, I watched one of the battles when this happened when I was hosting the other stream. And the way that this ends up working is it does Leech Seed, and then it does Growl and Tackle basically the rest of the way. Tackle will deal like 1 damage to them, but that means that when Onyx goes to do Bide, it doesn't do all that much damage to Bulbasaur, and the healing from Leech Seed is enough to keep it slowly whittling away in the fights. So kind of a neat interaction or a way to kind of force their way through. It's not the most efficient, but like I said, it ends up being a good way for the agents to quickly get through there. It also looks like we got another one at 13 now, so that's good. 2 of them here at 13. So they are progressing through. Like I said, the biggest curiosity to me is to see when they actually get to Bill's cottage here, what they can do. So we will have to give it quite a bit of time. It's not something that I'll stream and make people sit through here, but it is something that would be worth it to keep track of. What I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to, since we have this here, I'm going to delete this from here. And the reason for that is we have the fix ready for the moves that it learns. So that should help fix it. I'm also then wondering, because I had done some of the mapping for those Pokemon in that I'm wondering if maybe I was off slightly, but no, it makes sense. I did see Bulbasaur's, Rattatas, and all those, so I think it's fine there. Oh yeah, the other thing was we were going to switch here. So this one becomes the ID. This one becomes the name. And then party info. Yeah. So like I said, you get the ID of the Pokemon. Now you're going to get its name, and then the moves that it has going. So that's all positive progress. The other thing is we are temporarily halting the rewards here. So if I search for 88, I'm just going to say this is no penalty in Bill's lab. So we have a better solution. And very much the same thing here as well. That's just because we don't have a better way of doing this. The frontier bonus, honestly, I don't think is particularly working. Because what I see here in a lot of these runs is that frontier will stay, it won't particularly hit 0, which is kind of surprising. Come here. Frontier, it's like very rarely does it end up at a point where it's actually 0. And I'm wondering if these are more of end of run anomalies than it happens to be anything else here. Because it doesn't, like I said, it's a sudden drop. It never particularly lasts long. But for the most part, you can see it just kind of fluctuates. So I don't know that it's a particularly helpful reward in terms of what we're doing here. So I want to remove this for now. And just see if it has anything. And then this doesn't actually work. So there's no point in outputting it. And then this can hopefully keep the size of this output here down significantly. So that has the changes that we want here. Then this should be restarting, and hopefully now we have fixed the values that come out. And we can check the table here. It hasn't completed it yet. There we go. So the table should now appear. So we do see the name, Bulbasaur. They do have it. All of them now have this 255 for the last spot in the party. Not particularly worried about it. The only thing that was throwing me off is they're kind of out of order occasionally here. There we go. So we see the seen Pokemon slowly rising. Revisit and immediate rewards. Okay. And then this is level beyond the initial. So someone started catching Pokemon, which is perfectly fine in terms of starting to get out there. There we go, appearing on the map. And like I said, at the 100 million step mark, it's gotten fairly refined in terms of wanting to get out of the space. I am not sure what's happening here, but anyway. The hope here is that we will get Bill done successfully. And I'll let this go overnight. We'll check back in on this tomorrow ahead of the stream. Tomorrow's stream will be mostly focused on continuing to use Claude to help us generate fun little typing games for our website. That has been going fairly well. I think in the wake of seeing some other folks put out, using LLMs to develop full-fledged products, you can see here it's not quite as simple and straightforward as it seems. You can see here, we're only using the free version of Claude. We're not doing anything. We're not using Claude Code or anything like that, which you then have to pay per token that's being generated. But the idea is that we can, that anybody can do these things. You don't need anything in particular to get set up and go with these. It's supposed to be fairly straightforward, that anybody can do these, but a lot of times what you'll see is they have a lot of extra tools helping out. And the stream that we've had where you can go in here, you could do the same thing if you so wanted to. And we're seeing kind of some of those issues creep up along the way with the LLMs in general. I said, this one was, we asked it to make the tree larger. And what it did was it made it a little bit taller and bigger. But then when I asked to make it even larger still, it basically gave back the same code. And then there's like small tweaks that it has been doing a fairly good job at making. There were only very few times where we had to actually go in here. One of the biggest things I would say with Claude in general is that if you can, have it give you the specific pieces of code that you wanted to generate. And this is for the free version. So that way you're getting almost the most out of your individual chats with it. And you're not then getting things too large. Because what it likes to do is it likes to generate the whole code file for the HTML and CSS for our site. And that was just not being particularly helpful, because you could get like 2 chats maybe, and then it would run out of tokens for what you have in each one of these individual chats. So like I said, tomorrow's stream we'll be continuing that process and building it up, and hopefully completing more of the games here. We're almost finished with the animal rescue game that I did come up with. We had the baseball one working. It's nice to see that people are actually using the site on their own. So hopefully we can continue to build out or complete these versions of the games, and then start to work on things that are a bit more complex for kids. Right now, basically, it's the very, very basics of typing. So single letters, 2- and 3-letter words, very small word banks. We can start to build up different versions of games. For example, you have to, there's a whole bunch of clouds, let's say, and you jump to them by typing the correct letter on the cloud, and then the screen's moving up as you go. And so you don't want the player to fall off the screen or else you lose. That's a good way to do it. So the idea there then is that it becomes a little more challenging, a little more intense, and then you can have it where the speed slowly picks up. You can still have those easier beginner levels where you're only doing one word at a time, or one letter at a time, but then you can have it where it starts to generate bigger and bigger words as you go on. And the idea then is to get kids more familiar with not just the locations, but start to develop the placement on the keyboard. So, where's home row, things like that. So that's all for today. Thank you for those of you who watch the streams, and hopefully we're getting some out there. We'll continue updating progress as we go here. Like I said, today we made a bunch of changes to the output that we're generating, and hopefully we're getting it to a point where we can, I would say, reliably start to see progress and make it through build. So you can see here, now these are correct. We've got tackle and growl. Our Tata definitely does not have, was that Pidgey that cut, I think? And that's definitely not the case. So it'd be great if they did. That would solve some of the problems for later in the game, but we at least have gotten it this far. And then, like I said, we're hoping that they get back through Bill's little talk puzzle almost. Go talk to him, then go over to the computer. If not, then we're going to start forcing behaviors, and I don't necessarily want to do that. And then the idea here is that it can get to the SSN and hopefully be learning cut on its own. If not, then again, we're going to have to either force the behavior or force it to actually do the cut prompts. So, for example, and this is one of the things that is unique to the Generation 1 of Pokemon, is they simplified it a lot in the later games. You just go up next to the bush, you hit it, it asks, do you want to use cut? And it'll say, I think the name of the Pokemon that has it available, and then you just hit your A key again, it does the cut for you. Whereas in this one, you have to actually go, it says this bush looks like it could be cut. And then you have to go into the menu and say use cut on the Pokemon, which for the agents becomes troublesome, because now you need 5 or 6 different actions to actually complete the cut. And that's assuming the Pokemons are your first one in the menu. So you would have to go to the location. You would then have to face the right direction. And then you would have to go to the menu, go to the Pokemon, and then select cut from the list of things that appears there. So remember, these agents aren't actually seeing what's on the screen. They're trying to do those actions for what would be similar to a person playing the game, but just think these are more or less hitting it randomly until they start to figure out kind of the best combination of things along the way. And so because the way we've set things up, it's going to be really challenging for it to do cut. And so I'm hoping we don't have to force behavior, but we'll check on their progress in the future here. So that's all for today. Like I said, thank you guys for coming, and we'll see you again tomorrow.